then Tim Andrews. So great team. Thank you all for joining. And let's start with the first article on Kash, please.
So, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from OpenAI, and OpenAI has introduced GPT 4.1 in the API. They have introduced 3 new models with it.
Yes, and they are retiring 4.5. Can't you imagine? So very powerful trio, and with lots of data about their performance and the like. Tim, what did you think about this?
I think this is essential news. It's the market leader, and they've made a huge number of simultaneous upgrades here. It is, there's a couple things to say. One is that mostly this is about developers. So in that sense, it's less important for an AI leader who doesn't have a development shop, because it's all through the development interface for the most part. But they're notable things, and OpenAI tends to put these things into their public chat interface eventually, even if they just start in the developer interface. So I think it's essential for features are being incorporated into the chatbot, into the chat GPT that most people know. But this is all for developers for the moment. It's focused on developers, a huge number of big improvements. A million token context window, which is an enormous increase, a big cut in prices, very big cut in prices for access to this stuff. So better models, cheaper prices, as we've been seeing all along, and improvements across the board in coding, instruction following, memory utilization, that is remembering longer conversations and keeping them coherent. So just a long list of things, and an important read, I think.
Yep. Okay. So a proposal for essential. Do you think, John, that it's a step up in terms of the models that we've seen before? Is it like a new level?
Yeah. Well, I think, as Tim said, it's a combination of a bunch of stuff. Okay, so it's got, it's a dramatic improvement on, the SWE bench stuff. It does a better job on following instructions. Tim mentioned a longer context window. It's explicitly built around agents. It's way cheaper. The latency is better. There's transparency to some real world examples in this announcement, which included folks like, Thomson Reuters and Carlyle. I mean, big organizations. And I guess maybe most importantly, it really has an impact on architecture and model selection. So, 4.5 is going to be coming out of service. And so, it does affect the roadmaps and so forth. So I agree. Essential reading, market leader, making a lot of progress.
Okay. Amanda, anything to add? Essential.
So I can get on board with that. I would say at least important. And one thing I would say is from a user perspective, so from my side of things, using it to code, I remember in the beginning, I couldn't use any of the models to code at all. I mean, it just was awful. And so I relied on other tools for that purpose. And so now I've noticed it has gotten better, in other words. So I'm going to trust them on this to say that it's even improving more. But the fact that I've seen it with my own eyes, that's when I would say it's important. Otherwise, if this would have been even maybe 6 months ago, so many months ago, I probably would say, I'm not sure because I haven't seen it with my own eyes. And I was actually somebody who posted on LinkedIn and other places. It was awful for coding. So, so I can get on board with essential for this one.
When did you try it last, Amanda? Because they introduced Canvas, and you could actually see what's happening in your code and stuff. So they've been actually working on that. When did you last try it?
So I'd say about a month ago. But the thing is, I use Julius AI. Okay. So they have like something kind of built on top of these things that I use religiously. So just to put that out there, full transparency. So I'm kind of biased.
Gotcha.
But yes, I have tried it more recently, Luda, and it was much better.
Much better. Okay, sounds good. All right, let's go for essential because it's a market leader because of so many improvements, and and many things that are really making this useful. Okay, essential it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, please.
Yeah, the next one comes from Harvard Business
One
Review
thing I
and
forgot to
talks
mention that
about.
we should note is that
Hold on. Go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry, you hearing me? I'm at the Media
Yeah.
Lab here. I said one thing we should note that I forgot to mention is they introduced a small model for the first time. So again, they're also filling out their portfolio of models, and small models are going to be important over time, I think.
Yeah, totally. Small model and the nano, you're probably referring to the nano, the little ones. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you. All right. Proceed, Ankash, please.
The next one comes from Harvard Business Review and talks about how people are really using Gen AI in 2025.
Yeah, so this is a regroup from an article last year that talked about, with sort of similar name, that talked about how people were using AI, Gen AI. And now there's lots of things that happened. And the article highlights the top 100 uses. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was going to give this an essential. The methodology is, inductive from frequency and things like Reddit. Sounds like one of his big sources. So this isn't. This is by no means a representative sample, but I think it's an interesting inductive sample, convenience sample of what's out there. I think the most important, the most interesting things about this to me was how much. The technology is about emotional issues. That is, people dealing with therapy, people dealing with, having it be a non-judgmental coworker. There's a part of me that thinks this is, in a weird way, AI is, feeding into this whole epidemic of loneliness that we have in the country, and the fact that young people aren't dating. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on, right? And so I don't know if it's. I wouldn't make a blanket statement if it's good or healthy or whatever that means. But I thought it was important to understand what the uses are, and especially, I still see some folks saying, okay, the AI is going to do the rote things, not the creative things. It's going to do the unemotional things, not the emotional things. And I think that's 100% wrong. It's much more complex. It's really a conversation. It's a conversation partner. There's emotional components to this. There's creative components to this. And I think that these data, which are very accessible and easy to look at, emphasize that point. And I think it's essential for our AI leader to understand.
What did you think about this, Amanda? Would you agree with essential?
So, Dr. John, I'm going to take the total opposite end of the road here and say optional. The reason I said optional was I love it just as a read, for me to just read it. But my question was, as far as like a use case for the actual leader, what they would do with it within their company when they're looking for use cases on how to use Gen AI. I didn't know how useful it would actually be for them and something they would put into production within their organization or something like that. So I thought it was more like a fun read. So I would say to read it for, just to read it, but I wasn't sure how they would actually, like I said, take this back. So I was on the total opposite camp. So I'm interested in other views.
Okay, Tim, other views?
Well, I was, I think, more in John's camp because of this issue of just understand. Again, it doesn't have a specific use case, that's correct. But understanding general usage, and especially surprising things like, I think most people will be surprised that therapy is the #1 issue, although it's not surprising to me. If you look at any given point at the top books on every bestseller list, almost all of them are self-help books. So we are a very introspective species, and these things are very good at being dispassionate and helping us introspect. So it's not terribly surprising, especially since there's such easy consumer access. But it's an important message for AI leaders that you should not be ignoring this part of the capabilities of these systems, that you shouldn't be thinking about it only as a coding system.
Yeah, I wasn't essential, but I was on the important side for the same reason, because yeah, you as an AI leader, you want to use it for utility, right? But we know, because we see in many surveys, that the way the employees take it on is if they affiliate with the systems much deeper, the productivity increases dramatically. So this is a useful understanding of how do you potentially engage the employees and folks using this for eventual productivity. So I think it's an important read. So
Yeah, it's
go ahead.
interesting when you say utility is complicated, because there's a lot of ways you can cut into the apple. If you think about, there's a famous set of studies you may have heard of called the Hawthorne studies, where they're trying to understand in a GE plant what level of lighting led to the most productivity. And what they found is it didn't matter whether the level of lighting, it's whether or not people were paid attention to increased productivity. And so the fact that people are dealing with their emotional issues through therapy and feel it's a coworker, it may not be a direct effect in the sense of I can fire this person now because it's automated, but I do think it has a significant indirect effect.
Yep. Yeah,
Or,
and that's
or it could be direct effect in time 2, not time 1, whatever,
Yeah.
however you want to model it.
Yeah, that's why important. Okay, let's mark it important and proceed. Ankash, thank you.
The next one comes from AWS and talks about how TransPerfect improve translation quality and efficiency using Amazon Bedrock.
Yes, Amanda, what did you think about it? A very interesting article or use case, but in a somewhat narrow domain.
Yeah, and that's why this one was a little difficult for me, because I was more, I don't know why I feel like everything's optional for me today, but I was more on the optional side, but I could get talked into important. What the main takeaway I would say I took from this was that there's still a human in the loop. It said, there was some statistics they put out there, like over 95% of edits suggested by Bedrock, showed improvements in translation quality, 50% overall cost savings for translations, things like this, freeing the human linguistic. So it's saying there's improvements being made. But again, what I took from it was, yes, we have these cool things going on. We're doing a lot. There was sort of a diagram of the flow and things like that. But we still need that human in the loop. So I'm on the fence. I guess I'll land on optional.
Optional. Tim?
I would give this an important. I think Amanda's right. It's sort of on the border. This is not the best use case ever, but it's a good use case. And I think you can't underestimate how important multilingual translation is, particularly if you're any kind of a large organization that has multinational interests. It doesn't even mean you have customers there. Even if you just have business partners and other things, you have cultural and language barriers you have to deal with every day. And so this is a good significant improvement, and again, a good, well-articulated use case. So I pretty much give any use case that's decent and important.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tim, because Amanda, we've been accumulating use cases, and any good one that has the good content describes an architecture or somewhat describes an architecture and provides impact, we're trying to highlight for the leaders, because any use case is important. John, what do you think? Amanda is optional, Tim is important. Where are you?
Yeah, I was more on the optional camp because that was I didn't find it that compelling a case study, but I could be convinced into important. So I'd be okay with important.
Okay. Amanda, going important, okay?
Yep.
Okay, going important because of the use case, because of the multilingual environments in many large companies. They have to deal with this, and it's not easy. And transcreation that they discuss, it's again emotional issues coming through in the translation. That is a very hairy problem to tackle. So, and it seems like they are doing it rather well. So good, important it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
The next one comes from OpenAI and Canva and talks about how Canva enables creativity with OpenAI.
Yeah, it's actually an interview, right, with the CEO of Canva, talking about what their philosophy, their strategy, and we reviewed how Canva is using it a couple of weeks ago, a couple of I don't know, a couple of days ago, and highlighted as an importance because they had a number of really cool best practices in that article. So what did you think about this one, Tim?
Yeah, I was sort of leaning towards optional. I could be talked into important. Canva is a pretty important company in the development community, and it's a good example of a CEO really leading and leaning in hard on this generative AI stuff. But it's really a marketing pitch for OpenAI at the end of the day. There's not a whole lot of depth here, so I would probably go optional, but I could be talked into important because of the company's stature in the industry.
Okay, Amanda, what do you think? You already said everything is optional today.
I know, I did. But the irony of this is the creative one here. I was like, maybe this could be important for something different. But yeah, I could also be talking to optional.
Okay, John, optional. What do you think?
Optional.
Optional. All right, optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from Google, and this is a really interesting one. So Google is helping decode dolphin communication.
Yeah, this is one of those that fascinating as we evolving into and communicating with the natural world. John, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I'm totally confused as to what to rate this thing. It's either optional or essential. I mean, it's definitely not important. I mean, it's just so. Let me make the case for optional, which is, okay, this is scientific exercise, really doesn't have anything to do with anything our AI leaders is thinking about. But let me make the case for essential, which is if you want to open people's minds and you say, look, where is this going? As an AI leader, if you're to say, look, let me just give you an idea of how this is helping us, tackle problems we've never tackled before. And so, you have the Dolphin Worldwide Institute and, there are efforts here. So, as an AI leader, I would definitely want to know about this because anytime I wanted to kind of open the aperture a little wider with my folks, this is one of the things I would bring up. So I guess I'm going to land on essential.
Let me make a case for optional, but I'll land on essential. You talked yourself into essential, huh? Okay.
Oh,
Tim.
no. I'm saying that I don't think it's essential because if you're going to open the aperture of getting people's imaginations going, I can't think of a better example.
Yeah, it's a good example. Tim, what did you think?
Yeah, I guess, John and I are using the pod today.
Come close to the mic. We can't hear
you.
Yeah, good.
John and I are peas in a pod today because I was sort of like, well, I think is that better?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yes.
So I was sort of
Luda? Apparently not.
Yes, we hear you.
Tim,
go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I was with John that, you can either argue this is interesting. Okay. Interesting article. It appears with the microphone. I'll say essential with the caveat that John's point is the right one, which is it's essential because this is a different kind of language. It's really going to get people's attention. It's not about, what I can do with the use case tomorrow. It's about showing people the potential here. And it's super cool. So people will love it.
Super cool. Amanda, where were you?
So for me, I have, again, a strange point of view. So I picked essential because I distinctly remember last year at our conference, Igor Jablokov, so those who don't know, he basically invented Alexa. And one of his takeaways was when we could speak to animals, okay, we pretty much can rule the world here and figure everything out. So because of that, I'm going to say essential.
Yeah, I was fascinated by this article. It's not the immediate use for sure, but it opens up the imagination. And my granddaughter loves dogs, and she's forever inventing something that to put on the dog, call a speech receptor that she would be talking to the dog. So, and this just, I think, will propel her in curiosity and understanding, and it's just her, right? But the leaders are in the same camp. I really think we should market essential. It's probably subjective for us here, but let's market essential. All right, essential it is. So any announcements while Ankash is pulling up the scorecard?
Just if anybody's here at the MIT Media Lab for the AI event here, Paul and I are both going to be speaking, and love to see you folks. And it's going to be just a blockbuster day.
Yeah, and Tim is there,
Yep.
and I'm there. So
I'm here.
please come say hello. If you haven't met us, we would love to talk to you. So great.
Wasn't there
Ankash,
one more article? Am I missing something?
was there?
Yes, Luda, we have one left. Yeah, we have one
Oh,
left.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Lang chain.
Langchain, right. Yeah, please. I'm sorry. I'm rushing along, I
No
guess.
worries, no worries. Yeah. So the last one comes from Langchain and talks about how Harmonic built an investment agent with Langgraph and Langsmith.
Yes, Amanda, this is yours.
Yeah, so again, I'm on the fence because I feel like this is driven definitely to the developer side of things. So if they're interested in learning more about LangGraph, Langsmith at sort of a high level here and what's going on there, that could be important. But I think for the day-to-day leader, again, I'm on the fence. It could be important to note a development, but I'm on the optional one for this.
Okay, Tim, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm sort of there as well. This is a better use case from these folks because they've done some really awful ones in the past, but this one is better, at least in explaining it and citing some of the gains they make. But it really is targeted at developers. So maybe you could argue important in past.
We lost him. John, what did you think? Optional?
Yeah, I was going to give it an optional. I didn't think it was that great a case study. It's an important area, a lot of competition, but optional.
Yeah, since I'm a VC, right, a corporate VC, I really appreciate the domain they went after. It is really, really difficult to generate good lead pipeline of companies that your particular with your particular angle of what you want to invest in, because there's so many criteria that you look at, and it's hard. And Harmonic is doing a great job in actually tightening the requirements. So, and I think they're standing out of the pack because of that. There's other tools, but for people who use them, they're terrible. They do not help finding, they surface things that you don't want to look at. So I have been using Harmonic on their last iteration. I haven't done it with this one, but I think it's an important domain. It's a good use case, but I think optional for our leader. So let's rate it optional, and that will be the last article, correct?
Yes, Luda.
So great. So let's pull the scorecard, please. All right. So if I'm not mistaken, we have 2 essential, 2 importance, and 2 optionals today. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you tomorrow, and come say hello. And there will be, I'm sure, a lot of sharing coming out of this conference. Lots of people will be semi-organized chaos. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.